Welcome everyone to Coffee and Conversations, a mini episode from Victims and Villains. My name is Mark Pettit, and today we will be talking about Chop Chop, a movie that I reviewed here recently. And this episode will actually cover an interview with Rony Patel, the director of that movie. So the movie is a home invasion slash violent crime thriller that follows the main characters of Chuck and Liv kind of in this night of craziness that ensues after a confrontation with a kind of manic pizza delivery person. And this was my first episode doing it alone, so I ran into a couple difficulties with the sound, so appreciate your patience with that. But with nothing else, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So, Ronnie, if you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and then we can dive into the movie a little bit.
Sure thing, yeah. So, hello folks, my name is Rony Patel, and I am a filmmaker out here in Los Angeles, California. Chop Chop is my first feature attempt, and I graduated, I'm originally from India, actually, and I moved to the States for college. I graduated from Temple University. I went to film school there, and eventually I moved here to Los Angeles, and I've been here since.
Awesome. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. Just if I can be totally honest, I absolutely loved Chop Chop. I was very impressed with it as a film on its own, but then knowing that it was your directorial debut, I was even more impressed. So if you could just if you could for a second just go into how this movie came about, like how'd you get the idea, and then what was the process of pursuing it for you?
Yeah, so it's this movie. It was strange because I was here in LA. I'd been here for a few years now, doing the typical grind, writing scripts, pitching, and quite frankly, it was a situational thing where I was kind of tired of waiting for an opportunity to come up, and I'd been doing shorts before that, so I just sort of decided to, I was reading a lot on DIY filmmaking, and I was quite impressed by the results from filmmakers like Duplass Brothers and Adam Wingard, who's doing Godzilla versus Kong next. But one of his earlier features, A Horrible Way to Die, it was a big inspiration for just bring a group of filmmakers together, go out and shoot something or write something up and find a way to shoot it. I collaborated with Andrew Erickson, my co-writer, and we were both sort of in the same boat at the time. And we agreed to, just come up with this idea on the go, and creative producers did the rest, pretty much. We wrote specific. I mean, I'm a horror fan. I've done shorts before that. I've been specifically in horror genre, so I wanted to do something in horror, but clearly with DIY you don't really have enough budget, so I didn't think we could make anything serious, at least the way my style is. So we were like, why don't we do like a satire? Let's do something sarcastic, fun. We like home invasion. I was like, let's do home invasion. And then my own taste of crime thrillers. I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan and Pulp Fiction fan. And I was like, let's try and mix a few things up, because this is probably, if we do continue doing filmmaking for the rest of our career, this is probably the only time when we're at the liberty of doing whatever the heck we want. So it was one of those things, that's how it all started. And then next thing you know, we were filming it.
That's awesome. So I like what you said about it being like satire and it's kind of sarcastic. And I think you guys, if there's one thing you pulled off exceptionally well, it was that, just the overall like tone of the movie. It was so dark, but there was also just that overarching like wink and a nod, like this is something we've seen before, but we're seeing it in a different way. Can you talk about that a little bit more? How you came up with it? Because I loved the humor of it. There were so many parts where I was just laughing so hard because of certain things. And was that combination of y'all's writing, you and the co-writer, or how did that come about?
Absolutely. When we were writing it, we were very conscious about those choices. And we wanted dark humor at front and center of everything we incorporated. So it was definitely we were definitely very conscious of those choices. And yeah, I'm glad that people are actually getting the part, because I was a bit skeptical actually, that people might not get certain humor, certain beats. But I was very surprised by the response of some of the positive reviewers, how spot on they were in the interpretation, and I'm glad you liked it. I'm
Yeah.
glad you thought it was. I'm glad you got the humor.
Yeah, especially the bathroom scene. That scene just got me because I mean the um, Chuck and Liv, they didn't talk very much at all, but they just communicated so much humor in the way they looked at each other and kind of how they worked through this awkward situation they were in. It was done very very well, along with several other scenes of the movie.
Thank you, thank you. And it's one of those things that with less resources, you get more, you get more creative. One of
Yeah,
the reasons behind these long pauses and less dialogues was, we were shooting in. We didn't have enough resources, plain and simple. Our sound guy was great, and he did his best. But we actually good portions of that apartment portion is shot in my apartment.
nice.
So there are a lot of planes flying outside. So there was a lot of things where I knew if we have them say things, especially in our bathroom, it echoes. We didn't have equipment to record those things in a very, and I was pretty sure that after the production was done, I'm probably not gonna have money to do ADR either. So it was one of those things with that we kind of creatively decided together to how we're gonna capture these silent beats and
Hmm.
just communication with them. Besides, they are doing something terrible in that moment, so it
Yeah,
would be kind of cool for them to not even acknowledge what they're doing by like bringing it out into words. It was one of those things.
that's awesome. Something else that really stuck out to me, without giving anything away, any spoilers to the listeners, the most violent crime thrillers like this don't really have a supernatural bent to them, but this
Yes.
one did, and like a lot of the characters were very exaggerated, the settings were very exaggerated, very theatrical. Can you walk me through the choice to do that and kind of how that came to be? Because I found that part of the movie just very appealing to me and very cool that these characters were just so like concentrated aspects of these kind of tropes we've seen before.
Yes, yes. So as far as the supernatural aspect, yeah, that goes back to just me wanting to experiment a little bit,
Hmm.
and I wanted to also make it, that I wanted to add sarcasm to that, and um, I don't think I can speak much on that without giving some of the things away, so I
Hmm.
won't. But it's one of those, like you said, like a nod and a wink thing. But as far as the characters go, yeah, again, like I said, my own um, taste in movies kind of spilled into the mix when we were writing these characters, and you would also notice a lot of these characters in their dialogues are so over the top, outrageous, almost cartoonish at times.
Hmm.
Um, so that was on purpose too, because we decided, why don't we just write something really outrageous, and then me as a director, I'll on screen when we're on camera, I'll try to bring out more realistic, real life personas out of them, um, and that's where the casting was so important for me, um, because I knew I would have to, as far as bringing those traits out, those, still want to have those throwbacks to older, those red robe villains and stuff like that. But I still wanted to
Hmm.
make it a little realistic where people, even if the dialogue and situations are so over the top and absurd, I wanted people to kind of relate to some of the things and the habits and the little gestures that they make to each other. Um, I don't know if I was able to convey it, but I definitely tried to.
I mean, I felt like that was very very prevalent and noticeable, and I think it was executed very well. And that kind of
Oh, thank you.
that moves into the next question I had for you. And kind of you brought up casting and how much of an important part of that was for you. And just looking at the credits, like all the actors and actresses weren't super experienced, especially in like major roles or large productions. But I felt like every performance carried so well. How was the casting process a part of that, or and then how did that play into how you directed them on set?
Yeah, casting was probably it probably took the longest, I'd say. Locations too, but casting definitely took the longest. Basically, the process, I mean, again, we didn't have a casting director, it was just me casting people. Um, I used Backstage website. For those who don't know, it's a talent search website. They have some great talent on their profiles that you can just go and specifically search for, a certain look, a certain height, a certain hair type, head type, and all that. So I knew exactly what I wanted my characters to look like when we were writing it, so that helped a lot. So I was able to narrow the search down from thousands to a few hundred, and then I went through each profile, looking at their reels. I didn't care much about their experience in terms of like that feature, and I would have been great, but I knew with the budget I wouldn't have enough to offer them for them to get. And again, this was more like a run and gun kind of production as well, so I myself wasn't very confident in whether this would even pan out or not when I'd already started casting. So casting started really early. At least I started having an idea, looking at some of the actors for what I want them to look like, this and that. Took a few months, and then from there we sort of, once I had a loose idea of who the key cast was going to be, we did a few rehearsing sessions at my apartment, and a couple of things so they can do blocking and stuff. So it all kind of felt, it was very personal, to be honest. It's very strange to see this film being distributed like that, thanks to Kamikaze Dogfight. But it was all very personal, and it all just came together. The first rehearsing session, I immediately saw that connection, the chemistry between the leads and the leads with the other bad guys and this and that. And it was very clear to me that this is the cast I want to go with. And they were great enough to, give their best. To be honest, I love the casting process. It was long, but I love the process because that's when the story, like in my head, that's when I started seeing the film unfold. Really.
That's awesome. Like you said, like they just you could really see that chemistry. Especially from the actors who play Chuck and Liv, I feel like they would have been like an actual couple, and their chemistry they were so nice, and then so many other characters fit so
amazing.
nicely. Yeah, and I was blown away just how excellent their performances were, considering the experience, and I'm just very excited to see what a lot of them do in the future, and including yourself, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and with actors, I'm really excited for them too. I'll be very interested to see. I mean, some of them really kill, especially the lead. Yeah, I'm extremely excited for them too.
So you said this yourself, that this was sort of a run and gun production, not a ton of resources or funds to do everything in the exact way you wanted to do it, but you still were able to put together a very good film. So I know that there are probably several other people in similar situations to this wanting to make a film, but not a ton of funds or resources. Since you have done this, would you have any recommendations, any lessons learned, things you would like to do again or do differently?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'll start by saying there's no one path to this, right? Some people are great screenwriters, and we all do these types of things, like filmmakers here in LA, New York, Philadelphia, Georgia, wherever. We all do these types of things where we go out and shoot something and are sometimes successful at it. And um, there's the reason why I say there is no one way is some people are maybe better screenwriters. See, this is your first actual effort. Now it could be short film too, but your first actual effort tells you what you're good at in terms of what you might want to keep at front and center of when you move forward. And for me, writing wasn't it. It turned out because I had written a few feature scripts and I was pitching it everywhere. I'm not saying it's not it, but I just feel like I wasn't. And it's one of those situations too when you're coming up earlier in your career, you're a little stressed out, right? You've chosen this very, very, very difficult career path, and you're trying to break in along with I don't know how many others. So it's one of those things, and there's no clear path. It's not like a regular job where you have after graduation you build a resume, you build a portfolio, and you get into it. This is something. This is more like a random selection. So, as far as advice that I can give you is one, don't limit yourself to just this. You might be really good at writing. Write up something. Write a screenplay, but definitely keep moving forward. And for me, it was to just kind of showcase my direct career skills. And I was actually going to do another short, but then I kind of figured, why do a short film when I can do 4 or 5 short films together and turn it into a feature? That was like at the very, very beginning of the inception of this idea of doing a micro-budget film. So, yeah, definitely don't limit yourself. Don't believe there's only one path to things, because we read things online. We look at at least I did. I looked at, some of the filmmakers that I idolize and their path, and I would get upset. Oh, wait, how come this is not working out? This is not working out for me. How come they did that? It worked out for them, and I'm in this, and I try the same thing. Because it won't work that, especially with the times now. The times are really changing compared to what it used to be. So best advice is, or at least my advice is, don't limit yourself. There is no one path. And 2, make sure to have fun, enjoy the process, no matter what it is, because you don't want to be in this career if you can't have fun. This is not the career you want to be in if you can't have fun doing it. Simple as that. So remember why you chose to do this. Enjoy the process. If you do decide to go out and film something, some technical pointers, make sure if you are wearing multiple hats like I was producing, directing, I had to edit it later on. I was also a production designer. Make sure to delegate duties, especially on set, and trust each department with the work that you have assigned. Don't I micromanage a lot, and that stressed the heck out of me. And sometimes on set things did get a little heated. It was all good afterwards, but and again, it's a learning process. So if you are in the middle of filming something, and if it is something like that is happening to you, don't worry. It's very normal. You'll learn not to do it. And yeah, just love what you're doing. That's the very core of it.
That's awesome. So I have 2 more questions, so we'll kind of stay with this kind of like general thing and get back to something specific about the movie. But you kind of mentioned that this film was based on, or kind of inspired by, violent crime stuff like Breaking Bad, etc. But what brought you into film? What got you interested in film? Are there any particular movies, experiences you had, or particular directors you've really enjoyed and kind of had as inspiration?
Definitely. You can see some Tarantino style, Guy Ritchie, a lot of that. And again, that's why I said this project is so personal to me, and I learned so much in terms of what my style is, what my range is. When I was doing shorts, I thought I would only do horror, but then with this, I saw there's more to that range, and I definitely want to keep experimenting with how far I can go. And this goes back to kind of not limiting yourself. So yeah, I mean, I would say I'm a big, at least for now, I'm a big Tarantino. I mean, if you ever catch me one night watching it, it would probably be one of the crime thrillers, like from Scorsese or something like that. So those are like my Guy Ritchie, Scorsese, Tarantino. That's pretty much like the top ones.
That's cool. Like, you could almost predict that from watching this movie and kind of listen to you talk about it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of adding to what you said about like crossing genres and not limiting yourself. Like I feel like that's something that is becoming very prevalent today with stuff like Get Out or even Parasite. It's very much like genre bending movies that end up kind of like setting people off and kind of turning people into examining things from more of like an artistic lens or appreciating things that they wouldn't normally like. Because I know several people who don't like scary movies but would watch Get Out, or I mean Parasite wasn't too bad, but a lot of people said it was a little scary. But it really opens up a lot of opportunities in the way these films are being made now, and I think Chop Chop is a good example of that, and how it's kind of like across very many genres, and it doesn't stick to one thing, and it does that very well.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of Get Out and Parasite too. Actually, I love foreign movies in general. I love Korean movies, and a lot of and I come from India, and I was born and raised there, so I pretty much grew up on a lot of Bollywood films.
Yeah.
And I have to say, these foreign films, especially the ones in Bollywood, we don't have a specifics. I grew up with that mindset in the first place. So with Bollywood, first off, Bollywood films are not like the mainstream films are pretty exploitative at times, and I don't mean in terms of blood and gore, but like I don't want to speak to that, but it's not as technically sound. But a lot of those they possess this structure that makes it entertaining. It has a style of moving from highlight to highlight, mixing genres, action, romance. And not that I'm trying to replicate that, but it's just so deeply woven into the fabric of who I am and where I come from as a culture. And the fact that I want to be self-aware of how absurd some of those films are, I kind of bring that. I feel like I would be bringing that even if I don't want to. And the more this globalization thing, the more foreign films, more people get aware to the foreign products, they would realize the films like Parasite. I mean, Korean films. I don't know if you've seen I Saw the Devil. Yes. I mean, that's a great example of crossover film.
It's wonderful.
Action and serial killer.
Yeah, so for me, I used to be very much against any foreign or international film. If it was subtitled, I would just like, I don't want to sit there and read a movie while I'm watching it. I'm going to miss out on so much. And I went to see Parasite with my wife and a friend whenever it was in theaters, and I was just like blown away. And I was familiar with Bong Joon-ho. I'd seen Snowpiercer and Okja, and I was like super into those films. But after seeing Parasite and kind of seeing the art form still translate, still be able to get something from it, I was like, wow, I'm missing out on so many opportunities. So since then, me and my wife have watched several Korean films, a few Japanese films, and even started watching like the Hiro Miyazaki films in their original subtitled. And because I mean the dubbed versions are good, but you really miss out on a lot of the personality and the character that the original people brought to it. So yeah, I'm definitely down for people experiencing more culture, more forms of media that aren't necessarily so Americanized.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
And then, so this last question for you probably would have made a little more sense when we're talking more about your process, but I'm new to doing interviews, so we're going to just circle back around. So this was a very independent production, low budget, and you've kind of spoken to the cost of things in a little bit and how you kind of need to cut corners and make things work. One thing that I was surprised at was how good your practical effects were. Can you talk about like how involved with that process you were and kind of some things you learned about doing practical effects? Because I'm a very queasy person. I can't stand seeing seeing blood or things broke or people get stabbed, I always look away. And this movie had me looking away because it looked very realistic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I did have experience. So if you look at some of my shorts, I mean, they're not like great, like high budget stuff. But I've had experience working with gore and blood before, and then I brought in Ivan Gonzalez, who and his team of Phantom Zony FX. They're great, and he has worked with me before on a previous short. Yeah, I was very involved in terms of telling him exactly what I want, and they delivered on those things with, with keeping the things within the budget. And we also had a few fails. So it wasn't, again, this goes back kind of, editing process where you only include things that look good. So it was one of those things. But yeah, I was very much involved. But Phantom EFX did great in terms of Phantom Zone EFX. Sorry, did great in terms of delivering exactly what I wanted.
That's awesome. It paid off. It was a good film in that regard. I enjoyed the effects, even though I do get queasy. But yeah, overall, I think this is one of the best movies I've seen this year. One of my favorites so far. And I'm excited for it, and excited for you to see what you do in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, Rony, I think that is all I had for you. So I guess we will say goodbye and end this podcast.
Thank you, sir. It was great talking to you, Mark.
Yes, thank you.
Again, thanks to Rony Patel for doing this interview. I feel like it gave us a lot of insight on how he went about making it. I thoroughly enjoyed it and would highly recommend anyone to give it a watch. It will be available on October 20th on cable and internet video on demand, including Amazon, iTunes, Comcast, Spectrum, Vudu, and more. Again, highly recommend it. Give it a watch. And remember, you can find Victims and Villains on the web, victimsandvillains.net, and all the different socials. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at PumpySkunk, that's PumpySkunk, and you can find me at Letterboxd at MP, that's Mark Pettit, Tauntaun, Tauntaun. And lastly, remember to talk nerd, talk hope, and speak nothing else.